Yep. Oh, waste. For some reason, waste is costing this. Don't know why, but it's getting really annoying that you do that. Okay, I'm gonna get low a little bit. Ow! Ow! It hurts because. Okay, here we go. Okay, boom, and.
Does your home have a gourmet kitchen with an oversized pantry so you can store everything? What about an office with Wi-Fi built-in and hardwired internet outlets for gaming? Or a gorgeous porch or patio for more outdoor living? With Pulte's innovative and modern floor plans, you can have them all. At Pulte, we build homes that think ahead to tomorrow so you can build the life you're dreaming of today. Find your home at Pulte.com. Pulte Homes. More life built in. Equal housing opportunity.
It just didn't go far enough. Okay, even in Texas today, this Texas state legislature is on the verge of passing a bill that's going to have more restrictive gun ownership rules than the federal gun bill last year. They're going to increase the age for young adults to buy guns at age 21 as opposed to 18. Now, George, I've been saying for a long time that brain scientists have been telling us, and you know this, that the prefrontal cortex of human beings is not developed until age 25. That's why car rental companies don't rent cars to young adults.
Right.
They have to be 25 or older. And I think it would be in the to the advantage of to have national legislation that follows up with this Texas, if it passes the Texas legislature. As you know, it's a very strong Second Amendment state. But if it passes, it's going to send a signal that we do need to do something about this. But the other thing, George, that can be done readily right now, with a little bit of a commitment, is that the soft targets. That's where a lot of these shootings take place. They take place in nightclubs. They take place, in schools. They take place in venues like concerts. I mean, I remember that mass shooting took place in Las Vegas.
Yep.
That was the worst one in U.S. history. More people died in that massacre than in any other mass shooting in U.S. history. And so if you harden the target, concert venues, anywhere where people go, and you require, the same kind of things that you do at an airport, I would have like a TSA mentality in schools around the country, elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. I'd certainly have them in colleges because we know what happened at Virginia Tech a few years ago. And I think that would certainly go a long way in making it more difficult. I don't think we're going to be able to reverse the Second Amendment, nor should we. But we should have some kind of hardening that goes on in these soft targets that makes it more difficult for the crazies who get their hands on guns. And we know there's 335 million guns in circulation in the United States, because we know that that number is not going to change anytime soon. So access and availability of firearms is here to stay. We need to do something proactively to harden these soft targets.
John Curtis, onlinecolumnist.com. Thank you, John. Banking sector stress has shot up as a concern for stability in the financial system, according to the latest Federal Reserve survey on major risks to the economy. As inflation has eased over the past year, troubles at mid-sized banks has emerged as a top concern among market analysts, business leaders, academics, and researchers consulted by the Fed. Catherine Austin Fitz is with us. Catherine, the banking system, we're not out of the woods yet, are we?
Well, the banking system's got put in the woods. So maybe we ought to look hard at the guys who put them in the woods and the game they're playing, George. So I'm a big skeptic about the theory of a bank crisis. There's no doubt with the going direct reset that started in 2019 that the Fed has bubbled the economy, including the banks, and now it sort of seems to be playing some kind of shooting target game with them. But let's see what you're doing. What you're doing, the American Banking Association just asked the SEC to stop the short selling. Because on one side, you've got short sellers who can make a tremendous amount of money running the banks and triggering runs. And at the same time, the owners of the New York Fed were supposed to be, the central bank's supposed to be stopping these kinds of shooting target games, is helping them run them and then picking them up. And now we see the FDIC saying they're considering loan sharing loss agreements with private equity firms. So you take all your bigger banks, because that's what's going under your bigger banks, and you put them as a target between short sellers and private equity firms who the taxpayer is suddenly funding to pick them up cheap. And you've got a roll-up game that's following your bubbling of the economy. So, my take on all of this is what we need to do is, who was it? I think it was Rand Paul and his dad said, audit the Fed, find out where the missing $21 trillion is going. But if you look at the fundamental model we're using, right now you're watching a consolidation of the banks, which is going to lead us into financial repression and tyranny. It's a very dangerous situation. And I think every citizen is well advised before their money, is used to support the FDIC, or the federal credit is used to support the FDIC doing this. I think we all need to ask the question, where is this going, and why do we continue to watch a consolidation of the banking system, which is unbelievably unhealthy? If you come to Solari, I've got a great article by Richard Werner and a great interview by Richard Werner on why Tennessee should have a sovereign state bank. And I think the time has come where we need to get our state legislators to start sovereign state banks. North Dakota has a sovereign state bank. Every state bank needs that if we're going to protect ourselves from this kind of game.
Catherine, thank you. And Catherine's website that you mentioned is spelled solari.com. In a moment, Paul Levy back with us on Dreaming Watiko, breaking the spell of the nightmare mind virus. An incredible story. He's next on Coast to Coast AM.
His name, Robert Diaghiero. Now, you had a health challenge some time ago. You were describing it as even to the point of losing consciousness. Like you said, a lot of people heard of carnivore. They've read about it in Ty Bollinger's book, Cancer Step Outside the Box. Now, how did you take it? Did you take the liquid, the capsules? What did you do?
Oh, the capsules.
Okay.
I started off taking it 3 times a day for 6 days. But I'd say within the first week and a half, I noticed an amazing difference. No more of those queasy feelings of the anticipation of knowing that I was going to go into. They were gone. Absolutely gone. My mind is blown on this stuff.
Well, would your wife corroborate your story? Usually that she would say, oh, honey, you're exaggerating, or no, you actually did recover that fast.
Oh, yeah. She corroborated. She was there one time when I was doing the gig, and I lost consciousness.
Oh, my.
That just freaked her out.
So you're taking the carnivore week to week and a half. You're getting some results there. Obviously, your body is the testing ground ultimately. And I'd say if you see something, you feel it, you know it. And if you're not having the symptoms anymore, that's pretty significant.
I'm so excited about this stuff, I will tell you. In fact, I even loan bottles out to people just to have them try.
Hello, George here, and yet another happy ending from Carnivora. Call 1-866-836-8735. 1-866-836-8735 or visit carnivora.com. carnibora.com. When banks fail, when bonds are devalued, and the stock market is in turmoil, you'll be glad you own gold, and now you can own gold in a retirement account. That's right. Birch Gold will help you convert an old IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. Just text the word COAST to 989898 and get a free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, just valuable insights. Protect your savings with gold from Birch Gold. Text COAST to 989898. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you. Paul Levy back with us. Back in 1981, Paul had a life-changing spiritual awakening in which he began to wake up to the dreamlike nature of reality. And during the first year of his spiritual emergence, he was hospitalized several times, diagnosed with having a severe psychotic break. He was told that he had a chemical imbalance and that had manic depressive illness. Fortunately, he was able to quickly eradicate himself from the medical and psychiatric establishment, and in 1993 he started to teach about what he was realizing. He's written several books. The one we're talking about tonight is called Undreaming Wetiko. He'll explain what Wetiko means, and it is frightening. Paul, welcome back. How you doing?
Oh, I'm just doing great, George. I just really am so happy to be here with you. Thank you.
Good to have you on, and you're a good guy, by the way, and I'm glad you fought back and won this battle that was plaguing you.
Yeah, well, it was like having a direct encounter with evil, and I was in my mid-20s and very unprepared. And, I can now see it was this initiation into something, this deeper part of myself. And I'm just really grateful about that, really.
Do you think it was because of the things you were studying and investigating that hit you, that attacked you?
Not really. No, I was just an ordinary, happy, healthy kid. I was in my early 20s. And, to make a long story short, it was my father who, unwittingly, he was just acting out his abuse on the next of kin, which was me. And so many parents do that. And he had become this channel, this instrument for something darker that had possessed him, that was acting out through him. And I was the recipient of that. And it totally destroyed my entire family, and it almost killed me.
Jeez.
But I was fortunate enough to be able to, to contemplate what was this? Because all of a sudden, I was having this really direct experience of this incredibly darker, evil energy that had come through my father and was now inside of my mind. And it was not there before. And so it changed the entire trajectory of my life. And then after, however many years, like really 10, 20 years, that's when I began to realize, oh my God, it was a revelation. And that's informed all of my books.
I was going to say, that's what really spearheaded Wetiko in your writings, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I had no idea about Wetiko, but I was having this direct personal encounter with what the Native Americans call Wetiko. And it's this virus of the mind. And when people hear a mind virus, that sounds all woo-woo, but what it really means, it's a collective psychosis, and it's basically pointing at that the source and the solution of our collective madness is to be found within our psyche.
I was spending some time over the last couple of days reading Undreaming and also doing some Google searching on Wetiko. That's a scary thing, but it's primarily customized to Native Americans, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's their term, but every spiritual tradition and so many creative artists and philosophers and thinkers have been pointing at Wetiko. They just have these different names for it. And, it's in the apocryphal text of the Bible. It's called the counterfeiting spirit, because it's this master impersonator. Okay, it impersonates us, it puts us on, and it'll offer us this image of ourselves that's wounded or limited. And if we're not awake in that moment and we identify with its version of ourselves, then it has us. Then it can manipulate us and can control us.
And when you say mind virus, we're not talking about things like COVID or anything like that. This is something else, isn't it?
Yeah, this is not in the material realm, and it's in the human psyche, but the source is the human psyche, and it actually expresses itself via the external world in a synchronistic way. So somehow it's an inner disease of the soul that is able to extend itself out into the world and configure events in our world to actually express itself.
Some definitions of Wetiko: cannibalistic, attacking, evil. What do you think? What's your definition?
Yeah, no, it's all of those things. It's the source of the greatest evil, and yet it's a quantum phenomena. And what I mean by that, just like, with what is the nature of when you have light? It's a wave or a particle, and it depends how you observe it. Well, the thing about Wetiko being quantum, it also contains this gift. It's actually potentially helping us to wake up. But if we don't have the recognition of what it's showing us, it's going to kill us.
You've written 3 books about Wetiko, so this is important to you.
It's not just important to me. This is, okay, in Castaneda's books, Carlos Castaneda. Carlos's teacher, he doesn't have the name Watiko, but he's referring to it and he says, this is the topic of topics. It's the most important thing in the world. If we don't, as a species, understand what Watiko, what it's showing us, we're on a path of collective suicide. We are collectively killing ourselves. So yeah, that's why I've devoted my life, and I've already written 3 books about the topic.
Now, when we talk about Watiko, what would you call it in, I don't want to say it in English, but how would we phrase it?
Well, you know, I mean, I immediately think Watiko is the source of evil. So on one hand...
Is it devilish?
Yeah, well, it's what the devil, you know, if you see the devil as a symbol, it's symbolizing Watiko, but that's only one half of Watiko. The other half of Watiko is this incredible, like, this blessing, like I've been saying. It's actually really teaching us something, and it's getting us in touch with our actual creative agency and power. But if we don't actually connect with because the thing about Watiko, it has no creativity on its own, but it plugs into our creativity in such a way that it turns our own creativity against us in a way that's killing us. But it's actually revealing to us our incredible creative agency if we recognize what it's showing us.
How do you know someone has been affected by this?
Well, you know, we're all really sensitive, and we all potentially have Watiko, in the sense that it exists in the collective unconscious of our species. So if somebody thinks, oh, that person has Watiko and I don't, that point of view is an expression that, you know, that person has fallen under the thrall of Watiko. So, you know, it's an energetic feeling where when somebody, they feel like, oh, they're just somehow like, almost like, oh, there's an algorithm that's speaking through them, or something's taken them over, you know, or they're not connected with their heart. It's a sense of sort of being hypnotized. It's a self-hypnosis.
You talk about Watiko and synchronicity. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, in my new book, I have a big chapter on synchronicity because, you see, the thing about Watiko, it only has power over us to the extent that it's not seen, okay? And with synchronicity, what is synchronicity? But it's all of a sudden when you begin, it's those experiences where what's happening inside of you all of a sudden is being expressed in the outside world, in the sense that it's just like being in a dream, that what's happening in the outer dream of the waking dream is actually expressing and reflecting something inside of you, which is to say that mind and matter are not separate. And when you realize that mind and matter are not separate, that's to recognize that this is a waking dream, that we are in a collectively shared dream. And seeing that is the antidote to Watiko, because when you see that we're dreaming, what you also see is that we're not separate. That's to see through the imagination of the separate self, and to connect with your heart, and to connect with compassion. And that's like kryptonite to Watiko.
We're talking with Paul Levy. His latest book is called Undreaming Watiko. His website is linked up at coasttocoastam.com. You also have a chapter on quantum physics. Now, you say Watiko is a quantum phenomenon. Explain that.
Yeah, well, like I was saying, that it's like encoded in Watiko. You see, Watiko is this dreamed up phenomena, and existing in Watiko is the deepest, darkest evil, and or the highest light. And how it manifests in our world, in our lives, it's a function of how, if this is a dream, how are we going to dream it? And that's very, very quantum. Now, quantum physics is offering the medicine for Watiko, because, you know, I actually have a whole book I wrote on quantum physics, because quantum physics has empirically shown that there's no such thing as an objective world separate from the act of observation. The act of observing the world actually influences the world that we're observing, which is to say the act of observation is creative. And all of a sudden, that's to realize our creative power. And when we have that realization, then all of a sudden, we've dispelled Watiko and we've empowered ourselves.
Clairvoyant Rudolf Steiner, Carl Jung, the psychologist, they all knew something about this, didn't they?
Right, totally. The thing, like, okay, Rudolf Steiner was talking about the greatest experience of this time that we're living